Hi, my name is Trista Scholes, and I did my journal synopsis on the Missouri Review. So, according to the Review's website, they are based in the University of Missouri, and they do publish 4 issues each year. Writers whose work has been published in the Review continue to win prizes like the National Book Award, the Yale Younger Poets Award, and others. Their main editing staff is Spear Morgan, who is the main editor, Mark McKee, who is the managing editor, and Evelyn Somers, who is the associate editor. Their reading period, and they do accept general submissions year-round. However, there is a general reading fee of $4 whether you get accepted and published or not. However, if you do get accepted and published, it is $25 per page if you are published, and their contest winners can win around $5,000. Their guidelines for stories and essays has to be previously unpublished works, but there is no length minimum or maximum. It just tends to be shorter fiction, or I believe it's under 1,000 or 2,000 words, and over 9,000 words have to be significantly special in order to get published, because it does tend to be a different length than what they're reading normally. Their print readership is typically 5,000 to 10,000, and their acceptance rate was 0.063% in 2012, but today they do remain at a less than 1% acceptance. If you do submit your work into their review, it does take 10 to 12 weeks for them to respond. The typical length of their review depends on the issue, but they do usually publish 5 new fiction stories, 3 poetry features, and 2 essays, which makes the review around 200 plus pages. The cost per issue is typically $10 without a subscription, but also $30 year-round for a print subscription and $24 yearly for a digital subscription. Now, the reason that I like the Missouri Review and why I chose it is because when I was doing my own research over summer, I actually came across it to see what I might want to submit to in the future. And while their acceptance rate is really low, I kind of took it as something to strive for. I think it would be really cool to have your work published in something with such a low acceptance rate, because then it's kind of like, hey, I did that. I also noticed that a lot of their writers, while it's not necessarily caused by them being published in the Missouri Review, they do tend to receive a bunch of literary awards and things like that in the future after they've been published in the Missouri Review. But like just in general, it does help to get a lot of writers to kind of kickstart their careers if they're just starting out, or make a bigger name for themselves if they are published in the Missouri Review. So long term, I think it benefits a writer's career when they make the publication, and that's what stood out to me. So from their own About page, the Missouri Review is a not-for-profit organization made possible by the generous support of readers and donors. They have helped shape the contemporary literary scene by offering the finest work of today's most important writers, and by discovering the brightest new voices in fiction, nonfiction, and poetry. Later on their About page, they state that they also offer an internship program to 20 graduate and undergraduate students to help them later on get into editing positions. This personally stood out to me because I want to get into an editing career once I graduate from CSU, and I think that the fact that they offer the internship can provide a lot of future opportunities, because editing is a hard career to get into when you're new to the scene. It's not just like an apply and you're done. It's typically like senior writers that end up in editing positions. From the economic standpoint, their payment could be a little bit higher considering they do have such a low acceptance rate, but their prizes and contest winners do tend to be around $5,000, which is pretty hefty. Because there's no page limit for submission, works over 9,000 must stand out in order to be published, but if you're studying, or if you're submitting around a 20 to 30 page piece of prose, you would make $500 to $750. Now again, that isn't as much as other literary magazines, but it does help authors with future publication, which I think is a greater benefit. I referred it to the if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, but if you teach him, you feed him for a lifetime, because getting your name out there and publishing can be more rewarding than a cash prize. But overall, even though they have a low acceptance rate, I do think that the Missouri Review is well-rounded and worth a $4 submission to get the opportunities of a lifetime. Thank you.